Jenny Blalock seemed to have it all. She was a pioneering woman in the construction industry, owned 2 successful companies, and could afford the luxury life of a private pilot. Whenever she took to the skies in her small plane, she loved to document her adventures. She became an aviation blogger and gained a dedicated following on social media. However, she was still learning. She was relatively inexperienced. When her father joined her for one of these adventures, she pressed the record button on the camera, and the rest became history. The 45-year-old Jenny Blalock became an internet sensation in 2021 when she started documenting her life while learning to fly. Her YouTube channel, TNFlygirl, had 16,000 subscribers. She described herself as a private pilot who flew for fun in a Beechcraft Debonair. Besides her passion for flying, Jenny was also a successful businesswoman. She was the founder and owner of 2 companies, Lux Homes and Design, which built luxury homes, and The Plantation Reclaimed, specializing in hardwood flooring. Her success and determination in the construction industry earned her numerous awards for excellence in design, including the prestigious National Association of Home Builders Award and the American Society of Interior Designers Excellence Award. Despite her business acumen, Jenny's true passion was flying and her beloved Beechcraft Debonair. This single-engine aircraft, a variant of the 1965 Beechcraft 33, could only seat 4 or 5 passengers, making the cockpit feel cozy. On December 7, 2023, Jenny Blalock and her 78-year-old father James, also known as Jim or Buck, took to the skies together. Besides being father and daughter, they were best friends and did many things together. Before James joined Jenny in her company Lux Homes and Design, he had run his own company, Standard Pipe and Supply, for 35 years. Together, they later founded their second company, Plantation Reclaimed. They had flown together many times, and Jenny often posted videos of them in the cockpit on her social media, showing them happy and smiling. Jenny cherished the opportunity to fly with him, often discussing technical matters thousands of feet in the air. She told her followers that she brought him along to support her during her flights. Jenny was reportedly excited about the upcoming flight with her father. Just 4 days before the trip, she posted a photo of her beloved plane in the hangar with the message, "She is washed and ready to fly for a panel makeover in a few days." She also posted on her social media that she had just flown 400 and would soon complete her instrument training to broaden her aviation horizon. This certification would enable her to fly at night and in poor visibility, relying entirely on the plane's instruments. It was the next step in her pilot training. She was proud when she completed her first long-distance solo flight. Naturally, this flight, like all her flights, was documented on her social media, and the reactions poured in. However, some felt she focused too much on the social media aspect of flying rather than on the actual flying itself. But that didn't stop Jenny. She was doing something she loved. Making flight hours and training were essential to becoming an expert in the air. Like most student pilots, Jenny experienced some precarious moments and documented one of these near misses in her YouTube vlog. It became one of her most viewed videos, titled Aircraft Malfunction at 4,000 feet. When her plane's battery failed, Jenny was forced to make an emergency landing. "Are we going to make it?" Jenny asked her flight instructor when the plane's instruments suddenly went out. On that occasion, she managed to land safely. Despite the terrifying experience, Jenny and her instructor maintained professional control of the plane and made a safe landing. She remained calm throughout the situation and considered it a valuable learning experience. But just a month later, Jenny found herself in trouble again. On Thursday, December 7, 2023, Jenny and her father James boarded the small plane. Their planned route would take them from Knoxville Downtown Island Airport in Tennessee westward to Saline County Regional Airport in Benton, Arkansas. The takeoff was smooth, and father and daughter were on their way just before 10 a.m. Jenny brought the plane to 2,500 feet before climbing to 6,400 feet 12 minutes later. She requested following services. This meant that air traffic control would monitor the plane and inform the pilot about any course changes, weather updates, or nearby air traffic. It was a support system that would provide Jenny with guidance as she navigated unfamiliar skies. The flying conditions were good, with a wind speed of only 9 knots and visibility of 10 miles. However, 140 nautical miles into the journey, there was a potential sign of trouble. Air traffic control advised Jenny that she was slightly off course to the left. This was not a major issue and was the kind of information she expected from flight following services. She acknowledged the information and corrected her course accordingly. But soon, more problems arose. At 10:19 a.m., the plane began to behave erratically. Jenny did not immediately report any issues over the radio, but the plane's movements on the radar clearly indicated that something was wrong. The aircraft went through a series of climbs and descents, along with fluctuations in speed. The altitude varied between 6,400 feet and 5,300 feet. This unusual flight pattern continued for more than half an hour. It was evident that Jenny was trying to control the plane, perhaps without fully understanding what was going wrong at that moment. Then, at 10:57 a.m., the plane started descending again to 4,300 feet with a ground speed of 143 knots. It then climbed to 6,050 feet and slowed to 85 knots. Suddenly, the plane disappeared from the radar. Jenny and her father were in trouble. Sensing that the aircraft might be in danger, Jenny was advised over the radio to contact the Memphis Air Route Traffic Control Center, as they had lost radio contact with the previous air traffic controller. Despite this, air traffic control made 2 attempts to contact the Beechcraft Debonair. However, Jenny did not respond to these calls. It appeared that all communication had been lost. And then, a few moments later, Jenny and her father tried to contact air traffic control again. It was a last attempt to ask for help and convey their problems. But had they waited too long? They urgently needed to establish radio contact, but the signal was poor. With about half an hour left of their journey, the plane began to dive, reaching a descent rate of 11,900 feet per minute. As Jenny struggled with the controls, she made a desperate radio call. It was weak and largely unintelligible, but she gave the plane's registration and declared an emergency. 60 seconds later, Jenny's father took the radio and tried to make contact, but the message was unclear and too weak to make any sense. They had lost radio contact, and moments later, there was radio silence. The plane plummeted through the air, and despite Jenny's best efforts to level it out, it continued its uncontrollable descent toward the ground. The aircraft struck the tops of trees on a wooded mountainside as it crashed. An eyewitness reported seeing the plane fly low to the ground at high speed. In fact, it was flying at approximately 228 knots in its final moments. Moments later, the plane hit the ground, splintering into several pieces and forming a crater 5 feet deep and 8 feet wide. Jenny and her father were only kilometers from the nearest airport when they crashed near Diana Ridge Road, close to Pulaski, approximately 400 kilometers from Knoxville. An eyewitness rushed to the scene in a desperate attempt to rescue any survivors, but unfortunately, there were none. A fire started from the leaking engine and quickly spread, engulfing the plane and surrounding vegetation in flames. The aircraft had crashed on a wooden mountainside at an elevation of 971 feet. Due to the remote location of the crash, it took some time for a rescue team to reach the site. When they arrived, they found debris scattered over an area of about 300 feet. The cockpit was largely destroyed by the impact and subsequent fire. Jenny and James were found lifeless outside the plane. It was a harrowing scene of total destruction. But what had caused such a tragedy? Flight crash investigators had little to work with. Most of the instruments were destroyed during the crash. However, there was a question about the autopilot. Jenny had publicly filmed herself testing the Century 2000 autopilot of the Debonair. She had uploaded these training videos on social media. The tricky part about understanding the autopilot was that her plane was not equipped with electric trim, so she had to manually adjust it to work with the autopilot. Testing without a full understanding of how the system worked or how to manipulate the plane was risky. Upon inspecting the crashed aircraft, investigators found that the elevator trim was set to a nose-down position of 5 degrees. In this specific plane, experts believed this would be enough to cause a rapid, shocking, and dramatic descent. Depending on the features of the specific autopilot model, it likely would have been disengaged at those trim settings. If the trim setting was not drastically changed by the pilot, it would have caused a series of oscillations that could explain the unusual fluctuations in altitude recorded before the fatal crash. As news of the tragedy spread, tributes to Jenny and her father began to pour in. However, many people were critical of Jenny's apparent attitude toward flying. Some who had watched her YouTube videos claimed that she was more focused on recording the flight videos than on actually learning to fly. And although 400 flight hours might seem like a lot, some were surprised by her noticeable inexperience. An observer noted that after 5 months of owning the plane, Jenny still didn't know how to turn on her instrument lighting. Ultimately, it appeared that the tragedy might have been preventable if Jenny had known or remembered how to recover from a radically out-of-trim situation, allowing her to level the plane. Whether she had learned this remains unclear. There was some criticism directed at her instructors, as they had approved her competence levels as she progressed in her training, but the responsibility remains a point of debate. On December 14, 2023, a week after the accident, memorial services for Jenny and James Blalock were held at Sevier Heights Baptist Church. The family received friends and acquaintances from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. The next day, on December 15, 2023, the funeral took place at 11 a.m. at Stock Creek Cemetery. Jenny and James were members of Stock Creek Baptist Church, and they and their family had a strong faith in Jesus. It brought the family great comfort to know that Jenny and her father were together when they met their Lord and Savior. Jenny and James will always be remembered for their love of life, their determination, and their unwavering faith. Their legacy will live on in the hearts of those who knew and loved them.